Good morning, guys. Just wanted to start out first and foremost today and just talk about Kevin McCabe. He was with the Vikings for over 20 years, college scout for our organization, did an unbelievable job for a long time, made so many great relationships, and had an impact on a lot of people in our facility. A Princeton grad, a California native, husband, father. He recently lost his battle with leukemia, and I know a lot of people are hurting inside our building today that had relationships with him. Just wanted to offer our support to his family, the internal staff here that knew him, and just everyone, obviously mourning the loss of a really great person. So wanted to start out with that. Obviously, important to a lot of us here at our organization. But turning the page, obviously our sole focus is on the Green Bay Packers. We know this is going to be a great challenge, as it always is. Anytime you play a team with as much talent, great coaching, and kind of success that this team has had, we got a huge challenge in front of us. But we've got off to a great start this week, practice-wise. We'll have another few days of preparation before we get to go to US Bank Stadium in front of our great fans and get this thing rolling. So with that, I'll open it up to you guys.
When it comes to game planning for that defense, how much does it help that there's a similar-looking defense looking across from the offense?
Yeah, I think with the amount of people around the league now running variations of our scheme and the scheme the Packers run, I've coached with Joe Barry, on the Rams staff. I got a lot of respect for Joe. I think he's done a really great job with that defense, both with the personnel they have and also how he's kind of taken some of their stronger pieces and really applied their own spin on the defense, just like a lot of the people have, just like Ed has here. But it definitely helps to have logged a lot of reps against that coverage scheme, some of the front mechanics and things that we see. So it's a great question. It's a good point because we're relying on a lot of those reps logged. We'll see it multiple times this year. One of the reasons why we felt so strongly about how we handled training camp, especially for our offense.
Kevin, for the first time in Kirk Cousins' career, he didn't play at all in the preseason,
Yep.
excluding, of course, the 2 years ago. But what are the pros and cons of Kirk not playing in the preseason?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, off the previous one because, he's gotten a month plus of reps against a similar defensive structure, a lot of same coverage back-end structures that he can take reps, log reps of some of the things we like to do, not only against our defense, but as we kind of went through our install progressions, showing improvement day in and day out on things that may have tangible impact on, not only this first game, but multiple games this year just because of the structure of what we play against. Obviously, I think if you could tell me right now that we'd be able to get him out there in all the preseason games and get him, safely off the field after getting some snaps, we'd all sign up for that. But I think the way we've challenged Kirk to practice, the way we got the 80-plus reps against the Niners. I think the way we've gotten a lot of scrimmage-esque type of routes, ones versus ones. We did a lot of ones versus ones work in training camp for that reason. And then, obviously, Kirk's played a lot of football, and at this point in his career, he's got a lot of experience to rely on, as far as will there be, some butterflies and things early on in the game for all of us, probably. But I think Kirk will be just fine.
Kevin, kind of to that point of the defense and I guess the offense in some ways are similar to what a lot of teams run around the league.
Yeah.
When you're preparing for a team that runs similar stuff, I guess where is the finer point of preparation and not just saying this looks like something we practice every day and figuring out where those variations might be?
Yeah, it's a great point because I think it's so much of this league is personnel driven. Schemes are great, and there's every single week we're going to be going up against coaches that can scheme things up, try to get guys open, try to get advantages in the run game. But in the end, it's personnel driven. Who are the players and how are those players being used to try to highlight the things they do well and maybe take advantages of some of those schematic advantages that you have as a coach. So obviously Ed and those guys, really spending a lot of time studying what the Packers do. It all starts with the quarterback. He's a special player, and he really makes it all go. But they got two really good backs. They got a lot of really good receivers that are going to to be playing, different roles maybe than they have in the past, but still, I mean, they show up on tape when you really study those guys. And then obviously, I think their offensive line's getting healthy, and they expect to have those guys out there. So it's going to be an unbelievable challenge for our defense, but I'm excited about our group, the different personnel, the variations, and then how we can apply pressure in our own way. Here at the Vikings is going to be our first real example of getting to see that.
Kevin, do you feel like, given all that, you know how good you are or can be? I mean, do you feel like, okay, I know what I'm going to see?
I know how good we can be, but as I'll tell our team today, when we talk about what it's going to take to win the game, we got to see it, and that's for a lot of us. And I say us for a reason. That's our coaching staff, that's our players, all the things we've put into place, both schematically, from a sports performance, how we handled training camp, how we are practicing this week, how we go against each other throughout the offseason and training camp. All those things kind of, come to fruition in that first game. And more importantly, I just want the players to feel prepared. I want them to kind of play with that quieted mind so that they can just go play fast, enjoy the atmosphere that our fans will create. We're going to have a huge advantage every time we play at home. I've obviously mentioned to you guys before, been on that other sideline before. It's not fun. We expect our fans to get that thing going on Sunday, and hopefully we can do some things on the field to only enhance that.
Kevin, what did you learn during the preseason about sort of multitasking, play calling, and game management? I know the game management part isn't quite as intense during the preseason.
Yeah.
But what did you learn about that? And did you make any significant adjustments from like week one of preseason to what you'll do Sunday?
Not a lot of significant adjustments, just making sure that the line of communication is open between the folks that I'm talking to in those situations. I think we can get out in front of a lot of those situations by how we want to play the game. How do we want to handle that end of the first half, beginning of the second half? How do we want to handle the opportunities where maybe we can be more aggressive in those 2 minutes versus, more conservative to play more ball control and control the clock and limit possessions for the other side? I think a lot of it is feel. I think a lot of it is determined with how we want to play the game, how we communicate to our players, what it's going to take to win the game. That clear messaging is not only from me to our players, but it's from myself to our coaching staff, and then obviously players and coaches back to me, so that I just want to have a great feel for where our team's at. And then obviously what's going to inevitably happen in this game, how do we handle the adversity when things don't go our way? How do we stop the momentum from going the other way? And more importantly, relying on all three phases to kind of be there to pick up the other phases, because I'd like to think all three phases will come out whistling ready to go. But at the same time, that first game, whether you played in the preseason or not, there's going to be a level of urgency to everything we do, but there's also going to be some guys that are pretty jacked up and ready to go. And can we manage all of that and still play really sound assignment football, know where to go, know where to line up, know what our checks are, and then when that ball is snapped, see how many times we can have all 11 winning.
Offensively, are you going to have Wes Phillips upstairs, or who are you going to have looking up from the sky for you?
Wes, that's a good point. That was an adjustment we made from the first game to the second and third game. I gave Wes the option to kind of be down or up, and he chose to be. He wanted to do a little bit of both in the preseason, but we've determined he's going to be upstairs. I've coached a lot of games with Wes, with him being up and me being down, so that line of communication will be there, snap in and snap out.
Kevin, just how do you feel with the anticipation, your first regular season game, stepping out of US Bank Stadium on Sunday?
Yeah, I'm just excited for it. Got to remember to try to get some sleep and rest, in addition to, we're pouring into this thing pretty good. But at the same time, I'd be lying to you if I said that I wasn't going to be, a little extra excited, a little bit more than just any other game. This is not just any other game. It is my first game as a head coach. It's a divisional rival. I'm well aware of the importance of this football game for our team. But I also think it's important to know we're not getting in the playoffs, or not by the outcome of Sunday. And I think this 17-game season, looking at it, what's out in front of our team, it's important that we get off to a good start. We want to play the right way, But we know we're playing a really good football team that, we're going to see again later in the year. So we got to be focused on, really looking at the details, the small things, the things that we can control, how many times we can snap the ball with all 11 doing their job. And from what I've seen of our team and my expectations for our team, I expect things to go well.
Last few questions.
It's pretty rare for quarterbacks age, 30 plus to take a huge step forward. Do you think that that's a necessary thing for Kirk Cousins in order for the team to be successful? And do you think that you've put him on the path to do that?
Yeah, I think, in regards to a huge step forward, if you're talking statistically, if you're talking, playing the position, I don't necessarily think that my expectation is a huge step forward for Kirk, but my expectation he's going to play the position really well. And he's gonna be our leader on offense and taking care of all the things that he can be as an extension of me and our coaching staff out on the field. But at the same time, I want him to go turn it loose and feel confident that he's got some really good players around him. He's got some good group up front, and we've got some running backs that we can rely on to really marry everything together, letting those guys set the tone for how we want to play. So obviously, the pressure and the spotlight is always going to be on the quarterback, as is every team in this league. All 32, are probably asking similar type of questions about that position and the expectations. But I'm just excited to see him play. I think he's done a tremendous job through the spring and training camp, trying to get to that mastery level of understanding how we want to play in this offense while still being able to apply a lot of experience from a lot of different offenses over his career where he could go out and be the best version of himself.
How does Justin Jefferson compare with Cooper Kupp?
Yeah, I think they both impact the game at an elite level. Maybe differently just because of certain skill sets of one guy versus the other. But I think what really matters to both those players is I think they have an impact all over the field. Differently in the run game sometimes. I mean, Justin obviously is a willing blocker in the run game, but I think his impact on the field, where he's at in the formation, what he does to coverage, and how those coverages have to be tied to run fits, that has an effect on it, just like Cooper's does with his ability to not only be a factor in the run game, but then his location, and then just the ability to line up in a lot of spots. I mean, Justin's going to line up in a lot of places. That's no secret. But at the same time, I feel really good about the complementary pieces around him. So when he gets his touches, and we're going to design a lot of things for him, but we also have some other really good skill players that we can activate around him, opposite him, next to him, every which way to apply pressure to the defense. But I think both those guys, getting a chance as a coach to coach two players that love football, that are incredibly talented, and then the best part about both those guys is they're working as hard as anybody because they both want to be great and really are well on their way to doing so.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, guys.